Hi guys, welcome to the Crypt Studios YouTube channel. This is our first video, so bear with us. We'll try and make it as easy to understand as possible, and I'll try my best not to swear. But today we're going to look at airbrushes and basically taking them apart and giving them a clean. It can be a bit daunting at first because there's a lot of parts to them and lots of things that can get easily lost as you're doing it as well. Hopefully you guys will pick up some tips as we're going through this. The airbrush that I'm going to be demonstrating with today is a TimberTech airbrush. You can get these on Amazon for about £25 at the time I'm making this video. They're just really reliable. These are what I give to students when I'm teaching if they haven't got their own airbrush, and they're just workhorses. They really last, and to be honest, there's something that I'm using more and more in my day-to-day at work as well, just because of how easy they are to use. Dual action, you can lock off the back, so you can get really good control with them. So let's get into it. Let's get them apart, and we'll start giving them a clean. So when you're working with an airbrush, cleaning it is a big part of it. Something you're going to be doing a lot. It's kind of the bane of my existence. I feel like all I do is clean airbrushes. But it is important to do. It's important to do properly. It does massively affect your airbrush if it is dirty and clogged up. So what I've got here inside my airbrush at the moment is a little bit of white spirit. I've put that in there in advance just to kind of loosen everything up, because I really didn't want the video to be like 6 hours long of me trying to scrub everything out. So that's just broken down what's in there already. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So now, the first thing I need to think about really is taking this thing apart. I need to clean all the components to it on their own. When it's together, you can clean it to a degree, but the way to clean it properly is to really get this apart. Because you've got all this area here that you just can't get access to, and it's important that there's nothing in there when you're going to start your next paint job. So when you're thinking of the airbrush, you've got a needle that runs right down all the way through it. That's one of the most important parts. That's kind of what controls the paint as it comes out the end. So the first thing we're going to look at is getting the back off so we can gain access to that needle. This piece just unscrews. Most airbrushes have a very similar setup here, and then we just want to take off the needle lock, which is this little screw here. It just holds the needle in place. And means that when you pull the trigger back, the needle travels with the trigger. So once that's off, you've still got more that we need to kind of loosen up. The needle as it is, it could come out at the moment, but this airbrush actually I noticed was a little bit like over tightened, which can happen a lot. You need to kind of unscrew this a little bit. Sometimes it can get pinched. And that's why I think kind of tightening your airbrush up by hand is a really good thing to do. Sometimes you might need to get some pliers on it or something like that, but you can over tighten them. You can damage the threads and you can kind of pinch the needle. But there we go. That's come out okay now. We need to take that piece out completely, so we'll just carry on unscrewing that, and then that'll give us access to the spring that's in there. That's what holds it in place. So we'll just take this out, and there we go. That all kind of comes out as one. There's three kind of components here. We've got the thing that holds the spring, which you can see there, and then you've got the bar that basically pulls back when you do the trigger. I should really know the proper names for these, but I really don't. So just having it all laid out there, I'm going to take the trigger out, and then that's all the kind of back end taken apart. As you can see, there's bits of scum in there that shouldn't be there. It's just a sign that this airbrush desperately needed a clean. So that, yeah, like I say, that's the kind of back of the airbrush taken apart. So we'll move on to the front now. You take these nozzles off, and a lot of airbrushes actually these are two pieces, which you need to separate because you need to clean in between them. So again, it's just all about getting access to everything. It makes life so much easier when you're trying to clean them. These things, as you can see, build up quite a lot of residue, and that's not good when we want to paint. So I'm going to set these down in a minute. I'm not going to clean them yet. I'm just going to finish taking the airbrush apart. So we've got this fine little nozzle at the end This is my least favourite part of an airbrush. This is what I break all the time. It's like a hollow nozzle, very soft metal, very, very easy to break. So what you want to do is just pinch at either side. There's two flat sides you can grab hold of most of the time, and just gently unscrew it. Now, most airbrushes come with a spanner that you can use to loosen this part as well. You'll probably need to do that the first couple of times you're using your airbrush. As you can see, it's tiny, very, very easy to lose, which is why I always try and do this over my desk, and so to avoid dropping it on the floor, because if it goes on the floor, it's pretty hard to find. But that's kind of the main part of the airbrush we're looking at here, with no components attached to it. You can take that bottom part off where it connects to the air hose, but in your day-to-day cleaning, you're not going to do that. You only even want to get into that if you're having issues with your pressure. So we've got all the components laid out here now. I've kind of kept them in order, just so I can kind of keep track of what's going on. It's really helpful when you're first getting used to doing this. They're all kind of jumbled up. You might not remember which goes where, so you can lay it out in a way that just makes life a bit easier for you. The main things we're going to use, some cotton buds, a little brush here. Just a fine little brush is good. You know, any size brush that fits into the airbrush will do the job. And some of the white spirit that we had the airbrush soaking in. So the first thing we're going to do is just get a little bit of the white spirit onto one of our cotton buds, and we're just going to start cleaning those front little components. So you just want to get the cotton bud in and start twisting it around, giving it a good clean. And then what you'll notice is there's quite a lot of stuff in there, even if it looks pretty clean. You know, things build up in there so quickly, and if it's allowed to dry, you want to make sure it's not in there before you start painting. So once you kind of get a cotton bud in there and it's not bringing out any residue, it's a pretty good sign you can move on. But it takes time, you know. It's something that you want to do it good now, otherwise it'll haunt you when you start painting. If you can start the day with your airbrush nice and clean, it's definitely worth taking the time to do it. So once that first little part's clean, you know, you want to start off with that second part, very similar. Just make sure there's no build up around there, anywhere where the needle comes through. Especially if it's got silicone in it, that dries up and can create a film. That means nothing will come through. So just, you might need to pick a little bit of it off. You just want to work your way around. Just be nice and methodical. Just make sure you're getting everything off. And again, when the cotton bud's not lifting anything off, then you know you're in a good spot. You can also get a brush in there if you want to. That can really help, especially with the really thin part of that chamber. Just try not to cram anything in there too tough. You just don't want to damage these things. They're pretty delicate. And especially with silicone, as I said, it can cause a film, but it can also cause these gross little bogey things, and once they're in there, they really block up your airbrush. Now here's my favourite little bit. I'm going to try not to lose this, but these are quite hard to clean because they are so small. You need to just be careful that you don't drop it at this point. That's why I know I keep saying that, but I can't stress that enough. So just kind of hold it, and then with the brush, just push the brush through. You should be able to see the bristles coming out with the needle wood. You just want to spin that around and just loosen anything up that's in there. Making sure this is nice and clean. It's going to give you really good paint flow. It's going to do what you want. Now, you can, I've seen people put pins and things in there as well to hook it out, especially if you've been painting with silicone. So if you've got any stubborn parts, that's good. Get a really fine pin and just pop that in. So now we're going to move on to the main part of the airbrush. The thing that we can't take anything else off of it, so we need to clean this as it is. Now you've got the cup here, and all of that is going to just run down. Sometimes it can run at the back as well. So what you just want to do is just check you haven't got any stuff in the back of your airbrush. Most of the time it stays pretty clean. But you can get paint that does come out the back, and that can cause you some problems. So just running a cotton bud in, and same sort of thing. That's pretty good. We don't need to to worry about that. So then we'll move on to the cup. So the first thing I like to do is just start giving it a good scrub, loosening anything up. And as you can see, pretty gross. So this might take a while. You just want to just keep at it. You know, at the moment we're not getting access to that front part, but we're getting what we can out of the cup. So you'll go through the cotton buds for sure. You know, using this and a combination of the brush is the way to do it. So just giving it a good clean, and then once I get to a point, I'll kind of move on and go back in with one of the wipes. And now that I've loosened that stuff up, I'm just going to really start to give it a good clean. Now, actually, what I'm noticing is as that's coming out, it's not got much stuff on it. So I think most of the stuff that I need to get out is in that lower part where the paint flows through. You know, we kind of can't see. That's the issue. You can't see that part. So once we're happy with that, you know, that's looking pretty good. There's a few different ways we can approach cleaning that front chamber. Now, this part, if you kind of damage it, there's no replacement. You can't buy a new part for that. So I see, like, there's nothing wrong with it if you're careful, but people like to use pipe cleaners, which have got like a metal rod running through the middle, and that can actually scratch the airbrush. And if you scratch it, these things are so fine, it can really affect how the paint comes out. So all I like to do is I like to get a bit of fishing wire. Now this fishing wire, I just feed in, and what that does is it allows me to kind of floss the airbrush, basically loosening up anything that's going to be in there. And because the fishing wire is plastic, I know it's not going to damage the airbrush. And it is pretty good at hooking the stuff out. You can see there, it's bringing things out. So it's just about going in through there and then in through the top. Now, what I was noticing as I was cleaning this is I was getting a lot of resistance as I was trying to bring it through this way, which made me realise there was probably quite a bit of build up in there. Something was blocking me. So I just, you know, keep at it, keep going, and then come back in through the other way, and you'll eventually loosen up what's in there. And again, you've got to think, this is where all your paint's going to flow through, so you really don't want anything in there that's going to cause you a problem. And as you look in, you should be able to see the fishing wire come right through. You know, you can see I'm pulling stuff out still. There's still stuff in there, even though it's such a tiny little tube. And then, you know, once I can get this in there, it's really fiddly to do, but you can kind of feed it through, and it will allow you to floss it. But this, you know, as you can see, it's not a quick process, really fiddly. But then once you are through, that's pushed loads of stuff out. So even though, you know, I thought, I've done it a bit, there can't be much in there, there was still quite a lot of stuff in there. And this, now that I've gone all the way through, I know that I've got a good space there for the paint to flow through. So I'll just give it a little floss with that fishing wire. This is just going to allow me to just check there's nothing in. So as I was pulling out, I noticed I wasn't getting anything else coming through. So just a final little clean, and then I'll be able to move on from this part. So just giving it the once over, I kind of noticed that there was still some stuff in there. I think as I was cleaning it with the fishing wire, I loosened some stuff up that fell back into the cup. So just take my little brush and get back in there, start hooking that stuff out. It's crazy how much stuff can kind of hide in there, and just when you think you're done, you'll find more usually. So once you kind of are happy with the cup, there's that little sort of rim there that can catch some stuff, and that's best just giving it a clean with a brush, just getting it in there and kind of hooking it out, and that'll just mean that it'll all go back together nicely. There's nothing going to be preventing it from screwing back in. So that's kind of everything all clean. As you can see, there's quite a few chunks of stuff this come out of there, and the cotton buds are really dirty. I'm pretty good at staying on top of cleaning my airbrushes, but every now and then things slip through, and as you can see, quite a lot of crud was left in that one. So we're very close to having everything clean now. We just want to give this lid a good clean. Sometimes you can get stuff built up on there that can drop down as you're painting and really block up your airbrush. So just with the wipe, just make sure I've got no residue sort of built up around any of those areas. And then this is a nice and easy part to clean after all those horrible little fiddly bits. But yeah, this is again an important part to make sure that we get right. So now that we're happy, everything's kind of clean, we need to start thinking about getting this back together. And this is where it can sometimes get a little bit confusing. I like to just keep this order of this is how I put all my airbrushes back together, but it's whatever suits you really. I start with the little nib, my favourite part. Getting that kind of screwed on means I can't lose it anymore, so I'll try and do that first of all. The only issue is that once that's on there, if I was to drop this or put it down, it's very easy to kind of bend the end. It's also easy to bend this when you're tightening it up, so that you need to be really careful with this bit. So as you can see, I'm just tightening it by hand on those two flat sides that allow you to do this. You can get some really good plastic pliers for this as well. They're really good if you do have problems getting that bit back on. It just allows you to really give it a good turn. So once that's on, I really want to make sure I don't break it. So the next thing I'm going to get on there are going to be those other two front cups. So the first one goes on. As the needle's not in there, I haven't got to worry. So if you put this on with the needle in, you risk damaging the end of the needle. So just get that on nice and secure. Then that front cup, that front nozzle comes on. Just again, I'm tightening up by hand, and that's all that back in order. So I know I need to now kind of move on to the back. So this is where it gets like quite tricky, quite fiddly, because you've got this little hole in there, and we need to feed that trigger down into it. This can take 2 seconds or it can take 10 minutes. I'm not gonna lie, it's really fiddly. And you want to have if your trigger's got like grooves on it, you want to have that facing back, because that's kind of what your finger rests on. It just gives you a little bit of grip. Once that's in, you just want to test that you're getting that resistance as you're pushing it down. That means that you're in the right spot and your rubber band hasn't come loose or anything like that. Once that's in, you need to put the bar in next. Now the bar has like a little prong at the top, and that should be facing up. And you want to slide that in, and you just want to rest it against the back. Now once that's resting against the back, that's all good. If you move that trigger at the moment, it's all going to fall to pieces. So don't do that quite yet. So as you remember, we had the spring. So the spring just slips onto that bar. Now just push that in as far as you can. And then you want to take your spring lock and slide that on. Now this will screw right in. The more you screw this in, the more resistance you're going to get as you pull the trigger back. So it's kind of finding that sweet spot. If if it's not screwed in, all the trigger just flies back. So you just tighten it up, and when you feel that you're getting a good resistance on it, you kind of know you're happy with it. It should always spring back to the front as well, and that's a good sign. And this is the point where I kind of feed the needle through. Just make sure I've given that needle a good clean. Make sure there's no build up on that, because that again will cause you problems when you're trying to paint. And just always work away from the needle. I've stabbed myself way too many times with these things. So this is just a careful bit. You want to just slip that in there. Make sure you don't bend the end of the needle, or it's going to be a nightmare. And as you're pushing these through, you don't want to like power these right through. Just if you start to get resistance, just check all your components are in the right place. You'll know when it hits the end. And then when you just lock that off with that, as I said earlier, that just means that once that's nice and tight, when you pull the trigger back, that bar's going to push back, and it's going to bring that whole needle with it, which is what allows paint to flow through your airbrush. So just give it a good test once you're happy. That's kind of the tricky bit done. You need to just put your back cap on, Now this airbrush does have a lock on the back that allows you to control how far the needle comes back. We're not going to do anything with that yet. Pop the cap on, and that's it, guys. That's taking your airbrush apart, giving it a proper clean, and it's ready to go, ready to paint. So thanks very much for watching the video. It wasn't too boring. Cleaning airbrushes is really boring. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much.